EGIS rings prevent unexpected bearing failure from VFD-induced shaft currents by safely discharging voltages to ground. Installing EGIS rings with conductive epoxy. Before starting, make sure you have the following tools and supplies: a correctly sized EGIS shaft grounding ring, EGIS conductive epoxy, EGIS colloidal silver, a Dremel tool or an angle grinder, emery cloth or Scotch-Brite, an ohm meter, non-petroleum solvent, and a heat gun. Installation of the EGIS ring will involve the use of colloidal silver shaft coating and conductive epoxy adhesive. Always wear protective glasses, gloves, and a respirator when working with these materials. EGIS rings can be installed on either the drive end of the motor shaft or the non-drive end. For most open drip-proof motors, the EGIS ring will be installed on the drive end. However, since this installation is on a totally enclosed fan-cooled motor, we will be installing the EGIS ring behind the fan on the non-drive end of the motor shaft. First, remove the fan cover from the motor. Then, remove the fan from the motor shaft. To ensure the effectiveness of the EGIS shaft grounding rings, the discharge path for shaft current to the ring and to ground must be clean and free of any coatings, paint, corrosion, or other non-conductive material. So, to remove paint or other coatings from the motor end bracket, use a Dremel or angle grinder to get down to bare metal. To clean the motor shaft, use an emery cloth or Scotch-Brite pad to lightly sand it to bare metal. Then wipe the shaft with a non-petroleum based solvent to remove any residue. Using the ohm meter, place the positive and negative leads on the shaft where the EGIS ring's microfibers will contact the shaft. Readings will vary based on the particular motor, but in general they should not exceed 2 ohms. If the reading is higher, clean the shaft again and retest. Apply a light even coat of EGIS colloidal silver all the way around the motor shaft where the EGIS ring's microfibers will contact it. The colloidal silver must be thoroughly dry before installing the EGIS ring. Although it will dry in 16 to 20 hours at room temperature, using a heat gun will dry it in just seconds. For best results, apply a second coat of colloidal silver and allow to dry. Mix EGIS conductive epoxy according to the directions on the package. Then apply a layer of epoxy to the backside of the EGIS ring. Install the ring to the motor faceplate so that it is centered around the motor shaft and its conductive microfibers contact the shaft uniformly. Press the EGIS ring against the motor for 3 to 5 minutes until the adhesive holds it in place. To speed curing, heat the epoxy to 150 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes using a heat gun, then allow it to cool. When done properly, a conductive epoxy installation of an EGIS ring will last as long and perform just as well as a bolt-on installation. For more information on protecting your motors from electrical bearing damage, download the EGIS Best Practices Handbook at est-aegis.com/handbook.